something remarkable in a couple of years, but can I just take you forward, let's say, 20 years? In your mind, what is your vision for humanity in 20 years' time, and particularly about space exploration?
Well, I think the thing that would be really great is to have a base on Mars, and to ultimately and be making steady progress towards having it be a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. And I think that's the most powerful thing we can do to ensure the long-term survival of civilization. And it's just a very exciting future, I think. If you imagine a future where we're out there exploring the stars, and we're a multi-planet species, the scope and scale of society is that much greater. I find that sort of view of the future really exciting and inspiring. And there need to be things that are inspiring. You know, there are lots of problems on Earth, and we'll always have problems on Earth. But there also need to be things that are inspiring, that make you want to get out of bed in the morning. And having a bright future in space, I think, is one of those things.
I just want to touch on something that isn't talked about as much, especially about how Elon got there, is that founders and entrepreneurs have to have the ability to face death in the face, right in the face, and survive. To be able to start a company and not give up and put everything you have, your heart and soul, into that company to bring it to life. And one of the things that Elon did with both his companies is an incredible example of that in terms of what you did in 2008, 2009. If you could touch on that and tell that story, I think it's so inspiring, and it really exemplifies what it means to be a founder.
Sure, I can maybe give the short account of that time. And things were very, very tough in that 2007, 8, and 9 period, and even sort of the first half of 2010. And the low point was late 2008, because the first 3 launches of the rocket at SpaceX that didn't work. We had 3 failures in a row, and when I started the company, I thought, you know, I'll make sure there's enough capital for 3 launches. But we managed to just barely scrape together enough to do a 4th launch, and in late 2008, that 4th launch worked, and that was our last chance.
But Elon, if that was the last chance, right? The company would have gone to the wall if the 4th.
Game over, yeah.
So what's going through your mind as you're watching that rocket blasting off for the 4th time?
I mean, you know, they say about like a white-knuckled flight. I mean, it was like, yeah. I mean, it was so tense that when it succeeded, I didn't actually feel elation. I just felt like stress relief. That's all. It was.
But having, I think this is something about founders, is having success and failure sitting side by side in a moment. Does it not drive you mad? I mean, to have to cope with that level of pressure.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. There were some other compounding things, because at Tesla, we were raising around in summer 2008, and then the financial crisis hit, and you had General Motors and Chrysler going bankrupt. So trying to raise money for a startup electric car company in the face of that, it was like, I mean, people were angry that you even brought up the subject. And so we were only able to raise money from the existing investors, and I put everything I had remaining, and had to borrow money from friends for the Tesla financing round. And it closed on the last hour of the last day that it could close, which was 6 p.m. Christmas Eve 2008. And we would have gone bankrupt a few days later.
And they all think it's an overnight success.
One of the lessons we can learn from this weekend here, Mark, is exactly what the 2 gentlemen are talking about. And that's to have a culture of not being afraid that something might go wrong, that something might fail. And I think for all the young people in the country who are our future, really, it's from a political perspective, it is to open the doors of opportunity and give them that chance to build their dreams. They won't all work, obviously, but it's to kind of encourage them not to be afraid to follow that, and if it doesn't work, that you start again.
Taoiseach, is that
You've had the wrong
something-
view about that in this country for many years.
I think that's something you see in Silicon Valley, that there's no fear of failure. But
Yeah.
culturally, in this part of the world,
True.
no.
I think there's fear of failure. I certainly have fear of failure. You know,
But it didn't stop you.
no.
But I think it's an inherent thing, though. Like when Irish people have gone away and they've gone all over the world, you know, they might try 3 or 4 ventures before something actually works in the way they want. But in a confined island, the tradition has been, if it goes down, well, that's it's a bad mark against you. That shouldn't be the way. And when I find going through the secondary schools and the colleges of technology and the universities, there's a different attitude, and that's inspired by people like what you do.
I'll touch on fear a little bit, because it's one of the things that I've realized is fear is finite, hope is infinite, and I think what's happened in Silicon Valley is that, as Elon said, we are afraid of failure, but it doesn't stop us from trying, because we hold on to the hope that we will finally actually succeed, regardless of the 3 failures that happened in those rocket launches. You were hoping that 4th would work. And I think the mentality has to be that failure is actually an option. It is an option. And in other places, failure is not an option. And that we look up to people who actually fail, but they keep going forward.
But it's also to listen to where a new venture might actually be. For hundreds of thousands of years, we measure the volume of timber by measuring the height of the tree and the circumference and calculate the volume. In Cork, Treematics have cracked this. 3D version, you can put the entire Mato Grosso on a computer and determine the value and the quantity of and the volume of timber that's there. It's a whole new way of doing things. Why is it that it's taken Elon, after 50 years of analysis on space travel, to be able to define and make a reusable rocket? We've had, America, NASA, Russia, China, Japan, Europe. Here's one that flies and comes back down and is usable again in a few hours. And as he said himself, it cuts the cost by over 100-fold, which is incredible.
Can I ask a question? It seems to me that in many ways, Elon, you relish the status of outsider. I think you're talking about how you're fighting to get this program, the space program, together, and you said it was like a little child wrestling sumo wrestlers. And I thought it was a great image of you as an outsider. Is there a sense that may come from an immigrant experience? So, the Irish immigrants went over, they fought against an elite in the United States. Both of you guys have been born in other countries. Is that a factor in a lot of the great innovators of our generation?
Well, I wouldn't say that I relish being an outsider. I really just, I'm agnostic as to whether it's sort of outsider or insider. It's just that in the case of SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City, we're trying to do something useful, and I'd rather we weren't an outsider, honestly. I think ultimately, in order for SpaceX to be successful, it really has to become part of the system. It can't be an outsider for forever. And I think we're gradually getting there for example, NASA is our biggest customer. That's about a quarter of our launches are for NASA. We were launching GPS satellites and other things, weather satellites. And essentially, it's important to do useful things in kind of the Earth orbit arena in order to earn the money necessary to develop interplanetary transport technology. But being an outsider or insider, I wouldn't say is all that important, except to the degree that you don't want to compromise the fundamental goals and values of the organization in order to become an insider.
Shervin, do you think there's a sense that there is a sense of celebrating the iconoclast in American innovative culture? What defines a great innovator? What are the qualities you need?
A great innovator is not following the crowd, is not following trends. It's thinking ahead of the curve, is having the kind of confidence to believe in your vision and to never give up on that vision. The greatest innovators that I've seen in my life, and I've been blessed to work with, from Travis onwards and friends like Elon, and seeing what they accomplish, what you notice in them is that they have an opinion. They actually have an opinion. They have a vision of their own. They're not influenced by a lot of outside trends, and they're trying to force that vision onto the world and shape the world in a new way, and they have the courage to confront any of the fears that they might have in the path to make that vision come true.
Let's pretend Elon's not here for a moment. I know you're a very good friend of
Yeah.
his. Some people do stand head and shoulders above others. I think it's fair to say it, Elon. What makes somebody like Elon Musk special, different, better?
I think it's much of what I said is that ability to say, I believe in this and I'm willing to put everything I have on the line. It's something that I've seen many entrepreneurs that I've been able to be blessed to invest in do. It's something that I've had to do in my own life, is be able to say, here's everything I have and I'm putting it all on the table. And if you're not willing to risk everything, to again, face your fears, if you're not willing to do that, if you don't have the courage to do that, you can't stand up high and be someone that people can look up to and say, that's how I would love to live my life, both professionally and personally.
I would say it's driven by the power of imagination. It was Einstein who said that imagination is the greatest force because it encircles the entire sphere. And for somebody like Elon, to imagine something that's going to be different, and to have the conviction and the belief to actually follow it through, despite the naysayers or the cynicism. It is about making decisive moves and have the courage to follow that imaginative force, out of which may come success and may not, like his Christmas Eve in 28. But it happened. But it's driven by somebody having a view, a thought, an inspiration, an imaginative quality. To say, this is what I believe in. And whether it be, Jacques Cousteau to the sea so many years ago on the whole marine business, or the evolution of space travel and where we're going and how to get there, and the impact of that on humankind, it's driven essentially by an imaginative quality. The personality of the person carries that, followed by belief and conviction and really good people to make that become a reality.
And Elon, sometimes that puts you against the conventional wisdom. So I'm thinking now, while you were giving us ways to get off Earth and go and colonize other places and planets, you were also trying to make life better here. So the solar energy is a big focus for you, Tesla obviously. How difficult was it to convince the United States, a public that is in love with the car, and we're talking about the gasoline-powered car,
Sure.
to embrace the idea of an electric car?
Well, it was tricky at first. Essentially we're going against the preconceived notion of what an electric car was, which was kind of like a golf cart. So people, that was literally their experience with an electric car. So they're used to a car that didn't look good, wasn't fast, couldn't handle well, had low range, and a golf cart. And so if that's the framework that people are coming from, then obviously when you say the word electric car, they're not going to have good associations. And so the first order of business for Tesla was to try to create a car that broke the mold, or really fundamentally changed those perceptions. And that's why we did the Tesla Roadster and did an electric sports car. So it had to be, in order to be successful, it had to be something that had some sex appeal, had great acceleration, handling, long range. Those things were really important to fundamentally change the perception. And it still took a long time. But we're able to change people's minds one by one by giving them a test drive. So like, here's the proof is in the pudding, here's the car, take it for a ride. And it was very slow going at first. If I had a sort of a dollar for every time someone mentioned Tucker or DeLorean, I would not have needed an IPO. So it was tough going in the beginning there, but I think it was just by making a product, initially just a demonstration article, and then going into limited production with the Roadster, and then going to a much higher level of production with the Model S. I think people's minds have gradually changed, and then this year with some of the toughest critics in the world are reviewing the Model S and saying it's the best car in the world. Consumer Reports gave it the highest rating they've ever given any car, I think this year really has been a turning point. there's still a huge way to go, because the number of electric cars going on the road is tiny still. I mean, there's almost 100 million new cars made every year. There's an existing base of about 1.8 billion cars. So even if all cars were electric, all new cars made were electric tomorrow, it would still take, on the order of 20 years to replace the fleet.
That car will sell very well in Ireland.
I hope so.